Hello, you're watching James. My name's James, you're watching me, and I am talking about watches. Well, today I'm a little bit excited, but I'm also a little bit scared to share with you a watch that I've just purchased. This is a watch by RMALTI, it's off Aliexpress. As a result, I will leave one of those affiliate links for this particular watch from the store that I bought it from. But let me tell you, before we jump into the first impressions video of it, why I'm excited. I'm excited because it looks great. It is a really good looking watch. Obviously this one is a homage watch coming from Aliexpress, from RMALTI as well. They tend to be homage watches, but it looks really good and it has a really nice color and textured dial, which I particularly like. I've also really excited because I've seen so much positivity about this brand on all these other channels on YouTube that I am subscribed to and that I like watching. And I'm also really excited because this is the first watch in my collection to have the NH34 Seiko GMT movement. A movement that when it came out in that Seiko 5 watch really excited me. And to be able to have a movement like that in my collection now is really exciting. But there's two things that scare me slightly. Firstly is that I may be too excited about this watch. My expectations may be a little bit too high, and as a result I may end up being a little bit disappointed. The second thing is probably the thing that I'm more concerned about, because I've spent more on this watch than I have on any other Aliexpress watch. Normally I do try to keep within a budget on Aliexpress. I like Aliexpress watches, I'm more than happy buying Aliexpress watches, but when I get to a certain amount of money, I start to then look elsewhere. Start to look at microbrands, big brands. You can start to maybe find other watches that I might prefer over an Aliexpress watch. This one cost me 420 Australian dollars. Which is not a cheap amount of money. But I'm starting to think, well, it's got that Seiko movement, it looks great, there's lots of great reviews, so I'm hoping, fingers crossed, that this is a fantastic watch. But let's flip the camera around now and let's actually see if the excitement is justified or whether I've been a little bit let down. Let's flip around and let's check it out. So here we have my first RMALTI watch, and I have to say there's a couple of things that stood out to me straight away. Packaging is pretty good, but that's actually not what stood out to me. Perfectly okay with this packaging though. Card there. Here we have the watch. Let's put that package aside and let's have a quick look at this watch, shall we? So two things that stood out to me. One, unfortunately, is a negative and you probably won't see it straight away. Second one can probably be perceived as a negative, but I actually think it's a positive and I'll try and explain that to you. But let's talk about the first one that stood out to me, and it didn't see it straight away, but as soon as I saw it, now I can't unsee it, and it is a little bit of disappointment. Let's see if I can try and capture it. Check out the hour hand. Do you see that big scratch across the hour hand? If I'm not showing it to you, well, let's see, is that capturing it? I don't know. There's a big scratch across that hour hand, and now that I've seen it, I can't unsee it, and it is slightly detracting from seeing anything else in this watch, and that's a little bit disappointing. First time I've had that sort of issue from an Aliexpress watch. I have contacted the company, and when I do the full review about this one, I'll give you the sort of resolution about that. Second thing that stood out to me is actually a very interesting thing that stood out to me, because when I got this watch, I was sort of mentally preparing to sort of compare it against a Sanman. You know, is this watch as good as a Sanman? Is it better than a Sanman? Is it not quite as good as a Sanman? Because so many people have been saying so many positive things about it, but that's not the impression I got from it at all. I got a very different impression. I got, this is a Pagani design done the way that I wish a Pagani design was done. Now, this is not a negative thing. I'm not saying this is a cheap watch that, you know, has a few things a little bit better, but in hand, it feels like I have a Pagani design that has every little bit finished, fixed, done the way that I would sort of want a Pagani design done. It's like a Pagani design on steroids, and that's a good thing. There is absolutely nothing wrong with this watch other than that scratch, because it feels well finished and it looks great, and I really, really like it. But you know, I hope I'm explaining that correctly. I know that may sound like a negative about a watch that I've spent more money on than any other watch from Aliexpress, but I mean it in a really good way. But let's have a look at this watch, because there's some things that really do stand out about it. That dial is absolutely wondrous. I really, really like it. I love that grey colour, but I also like the texture that's on there. That's really quite cool. Looking past that scratch, I do like the look of those hands. I think they're very cool. I like that I picked the blue hand on that GMT. I think that grey and blue look very good together. I understand it doesn't stand out as much as some of the other options. I know there's a red option, which definitely would stand out more, give it a little bit more of a pop colour, but blue and grey together, I do like that. That's a solid bezel, looks very nice. All the finishing on it is very nice. We've got a mixture of surfaces, which is very, very cool. Solid end links, which actually fitted really nicely. Bracelet feels really good. Yeah, really good. Again, feels like what I wish Pagani Design did and what they just don't quite achieve, you know. Those watches, those Pagani Design watches, they're great. I like them, but I keep thinking, oh, I wish that was a little bit better. I wish that was a little bit better. And if that was done a little bit better, well, if you did all those things all a little bit better, you get a RMALTI watch, or at least that's the kind of sort of feel that I'm getting. There's a logo on the crown. It's a screw-down crown. Obviously, this contains that new Seiko NH38 movement. Is it 38? Oh, now I can't remember. No, NH34 movement. Screw-down, manual wind, and of course it does have hacking. Now, it is slave to the hour hand, so I'll show all that off when I get into the full review of this particular one. I like the date window there tucked in. We have a bit of a GS sort of feel to this one. I understand that's sort of what we're sort of looking at, and this is the sort of watches that they tend to sort of homage as well. Do like the sort of little bit of polishing on that bracelet, not too much, just a little bit, just to give it a little bit of bling. No, nice clasp. It's sort of a clasp that I actually particularly like. Not too big, not too small. Enough micro adjust to make it easy to fit. All milled, as you can see, and we can actually see the movement in there, which I'm actually quite glad about. It's not probably the prettiest movement in the world, but it's nice to be able to see this new movement on display. It's actually very nice to be able to look in there and go, yep, that's that new Seiko movement. But how does it look on wrist? Well, let's check it out. Well, I think it looks and it feels really good. Very nice dimensions of this watch. Really sort of suits my medium 6 3/4 inch wrist. It's probably the best size for me realistically. I know sometimes I do wear some slightly larger watches, which I'm perfectly happy with, but this realistically is probably the best size for me. I think it's a 40mm case, 20mm lugs maybe, or maybe it's even 22, I'm not sure. Of course, I'll go through all those sort of dimensions when I do the full review of it. Yeah, lovely. I really do like it. And I am actually looking forward to doing the full review. I'm a little bit disappointed by that scratch on that hour hand. Hopefully that gets resolved in an easy way from the store there that I got it from. Let's see how that goes, and I'll talk about that when I do the full review in 4 to 6 weeks, as I usually do. As always, guys, thank you so much for watching, and I do hope to see you in the next video.